Hello and welcome back. In this video, I'm going to go over how to make a text pop-up system. So, if you're playing a multiplayer game and you see a player attacking something, you'll see the floating combat text pop up above their head. This will be how you can do it. There's probably a couple of other ways, but this is probably a pretty good way of doing it. So to begin, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an object pool of my text elements that I'm going to use. So I'm going to come in here and we'll get some of this dirty work out of the way first. So this is going to be my world space canvas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this over to world space. I want to center it up. I guess I can do this, right? Reset, and then set that to 1 and 1. Same amount of effort. All right, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create an empty, and this is going to be pop-up text. I need a holder for my pop-up text. I'm going to then create a UI element, and what we're going to do is we're just going to set this to 10, and I want to center it up and then make it look fancy and a little bit too big. Let's take it down to a 10, so because all I'm going to be doing is clicking on the screen. So let's take this to probably a 1 by 1. There we go. So actually, let me take it out to 3. I think I'm going to use a float as the example. So yeah, we'll just take it out to 3. It'll be fine. All right, so here we have this, and then I need to add a rigid body because the rigid body is going to give us that. We're going to add force to it. It's going to pop up in the air a little bit, come back down, and turn itself off. So let's try a 0.5 to start. And then I need to add a script machine to it because we are going to make this thing fly. So we're going to save, this is going to be the pop-up text object. Okay, and then what we want to do on here is not on start, but on enable. On enable, I want you to add velocity. Nope, add force, not force. All right. So 2D, add force. I'm going to impulse upward. So let's add force of a 1. And then I want you to wait just a second. I want to set that to a coroutine, and I'm going to wait for seconds. And I am going to turn this thing off. Let's give it 2 seconds is okay. All right, so I want to set active because you have to remember what the pool is going to do. So I am going to be recycling the same objects over and over and over so that I can use these instead of instantiating and destroying or despawning. There's a lot less overhead to setting something active than it is to send all the information across the network. So what we're going to do is this will be we'll just call this attack text. Okay, and then I want to turn this off and clone this a couple of times. Let's say we'll do 10. That'll work. Okay, and now I need to create a player because we're going to have to create a networked player. I don't need a sprite. I just need a player with my script on it. So this RPC and CMD script, the one from the previous videos, this is the one that you have to have on all your objects to send and receive RPC and CMDs. It's only required on the objects that are actually going to be sending and receiving data. So I'm going to have to add that to my player. And so we have that here. Now I want to add another script machine, and we're going to create a new one. And this is going to be the, let's see, pop-up text controller. Okay, now what I want to do is when I click, I want one of these to come on and then also show for every other player around me or in the game. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do on mouse input because I want to be able to click, and I want to make sure that only my player, because you remember this script will be on every player in your instance. So if you have 1,000 players, all 1,000 will try to send at the same time, and you only want your object. So is owner, because I only want my object sending. There we go. And I'm going to get my mouse position. Okay. And from here, I am going to do a screen to world space because I am dealing in world position on my canvas. So I'm going to get main for my camera. And then again, like I did in the previous video, I want to round this because in my version of the script, and that's another important thing, you have to remember, I only deal in 2D. I typically don't mess with 3D a whole lot, so I only have 2D in here. So you have to send the data type that you're working with. So okay, we're going to round this, and then I want to CMD master. CMD master is what I called my script. And then this is true, and I want to send the client sends click. All right, very good. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to set anything I don't use as null. And the only thing I will be sending is a position because that's what I'm after from the player's input. The player itself is not going to be calculating anything. It's just the position at which I click. So this could be an ability. If you targeted something and then hit 1 and used an ability, you send that ability to the server. The server then calculates everything for the damage and then returns the text back to be displayed. The player itself is never going to be calculating anything. It's very important that you keep everything server side. If a player can edit their own attack values, then they're going to send, at some point, someone will start sending just millions of damage at once and everything dies instantly. So it's important you control the flow of data. So I'm going to create a list and we're going to do 1. And then I want this 1 position to be sent. So every time I click as a player, anywhere on the screen, it's going to send this position to the server. Okay, so now on the server, I need to custom event. And then I have 8 because as I've described in my other videos, these have 8 inputs. So I have to have 8 inputs on my trigger. And on here, I want to make sure that it is server. Okay. And we're going to make sure that we are only running this task on the server because this is where everything would be calculated. Okay, once I click, this could run any number of things. You could do damage calculations, events that do whatever. So it's all fully reliant on what you're going to do as a person in your game. So now I'm going to do an RPC master. Okay, so this RPC is now going to send everything back to all the players. So this was a client sends click, and then server sends result. Okay, and in here I want to do a string. So if I was creating a damage, you can just send it as a string instead of an int, so you don't have to recast it whenever you're on the other side. You're going to a UI element. So you're going back to text, so it doesn't really matter if it's an int or not. So it's just send it as a string. It's fine. And so I want to do let's do a random number. Let's see here. So I'm going to do a rand, so 0 to 100, and then I'm going to do a float to string. And that way everybody will get a random number and they will all be the same because the calculation was done on the server and the server is going to send to everyone. Okay, so now we got to make sure we get our nulls. And again, you can customize your nodes, and I've found that this is by far the easiest for me. Like I said, in some cases I will use every single one of these. In some cases I'll use one. Or none if I'm just sending just a trigger. So it doesn't bother me to have a null sitting here. And it really saves a big headache once this is all standardized. You can get going really quickly. All right. So I have my, I need to connect my position. So that's the 5th one coming in here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my position is going to carry over. The nulls will carry over with it because they're already null. And then I want to, on the client side, once again, I've got to bring in my data and then do what I'm going to do with it. So here on the client side, I want this to show up for everybody. I don't want it to just show up for the person who clicked. It needs to be everybody around them at the same time. So I don't need to put any conditions for server or owner or anything like that. It's just going to apply to everybody because the player is on everybody's machine, then they will all get the same message. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I've got pop-up text. Let me get this, and we're going to now access our object pool. I'm going to just use a find because it's easy for now. I want to for each this list. Okay, so once I for each this, I need to find the one that is going to be inactive. So I need to get active self. So I need to find one of these in this list that's inactive. And you remember, when I click and it activates one, it's going to keep setting them inactive after 2 seconds after it does all its stuff. So what we're going to do now is I want to do an if, and I want to find one of the ones that's inactive. So that I only want this to happen once throughout this entire loop. So the loop may have you may have 100 objects in this pool, but you only need it to happen one time. And then on the exit is when we reset it. So this will only happen once, so we end up only grabbing the first item in the pool. Okay, and now we want to UGUI set text. Okay, because now we have this value, which is the fourth object, 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to do first item, and this was the string for this. This is the object that I got out of here for the text. Okay, and this is going to fire it off once. All right, so now what we also want to do is we want to add a little bit of force to it. Well, first we got to set position, and then we add force. All right, so we're going to set position for this object. Okay, we're going to set the position for that object. The position is carried through, so we need to take this, right, stop it. This was the fifth one for the position. This is the position. Okay. And now what I want to do is I want to set this active. Okay. And this is that object again. We're going to make sure you're true. And then we're going to add force to that object because that object has a rigid body on it, and it's going to add force to it. For 2 seconds, it's going to go up, and then it should work. So let's see what happens with this. I didn't test a single thing, so maybe this will work, maybe it won't. We're going to find out pretty soon. Actually, let me delete this player out of here. I need to, let me make a prefab out of this fellow first, and then I got to add the network. Did not do that at all. So let's get rid of the player. All right, so here we have our manager. Okay. And I am going to add my player prefab. This is the player spawner. Every player spawns this player. I don't need a time manager or anything like that. I'm not doing anything special other than clicking on a screen, so I don't have to worry about anything. But actually, I do. Caught myself on that one. I have physics, so I need to switch the physics mode to the time manager. It's important that Fish manages your physics for you. So it does a very good job. Everything aligns correctly, and it helps you interpolation and whatnot. So let's see how this works. Fingers crossed. I didn't test this at all, so hopefully it works. All right, so we're going to find out. So we click. Hey, look at that. Yep, so it turned off. So then you go back in and you start adjusting things. You can adjust the rigid bodies, the amount of force, the gravity, all the other kind of stuff. You could probably just set gravity scale here instead of, yeah. instead of trying to go through and modify each one, just change this up. And you can create variables and send them to this. What did I have? 0.5. So let's do a 0.2. So now if I click, you see, so there. All right. Now, that all worked. So let's see what happens if I come in here and I reload this bad boy. All right. So parallel sync is all synced up, everything cloned over. I'm going to run this. I'm going to put them side by side and see what happens. And hopefully, fingers crossed, it worked. But you never know. So we're going to click this. What did I do? I did not refresh the packages or the prefabs. Okay, so up here, you want to refresh default prefabs. File, save. Okay, and then we're going to go back over to Fish or over to the clone here. And we want to make sure that this thing has captured all the prefabs. Let's see here. Prefab, player, good. All this should be synced up. And now we are good. It should have made a copy. So every once in a while we get that. And that's a parallel sync problem. It's not a Fish issue. It's the clone that doesn't sync up completely every single time. But once we get it working, it works great. So let's try it again. There we go. Okay. So now let's take this over to here and this over to here. So as you can see, when I click on either or, I am going to get the values that were generated, and they're going to be identical. So 37 or 97, let's see. Yep, 10, 10, right? So now that is complete. So that is how you will do the kind of floating text. And over here, you can see the object pool and how that works, okay? So let's use it here on the server. So you can see after 2 seconds, I'm going to go through, and if I run out, if I click too fast, eventually I'll click too fast, it's just going to ignore creating another one. It's just going to skip over it, which is really handy because if you have thousands and thousands of texts coming through all at once, which is possible if you have 1,000 players running around, then you're going to get bombarded with these. And so it's important to keep a pool like this and then adjust it to however many you need for your project. So that's really all there is to it. It's really straightforward, man. This stuff is a lot of fun, and I think folks really will enjoy watching these videos and learning how to do these basic kinds of things. Fish is probably one of the best. I mean, it's I am quite amazed with it still at this point. Definitely really quality stuff. And absolutely check out all my other videos, subscribe, whatnot. Definitely have a good one, guys.